What's up, YouTube? ODST General back again with another Operation Trebuchet news update. So this is actually coming a little bit later than normal just because I had a pretty busy day behind me here now. So I'm actually getting to recording this the night after the update some of the stuff will be coming a little bit late. I apologize for that, guys. Let's get into it with the introduction. Welcome back, everyone. It's been a busy few weeks. We've got quite a bit of new content to show off to you today as we draw closer to that fabled update. Let's get right to it so I can get back to work. User activity. You've drawn quite a crowd. Our little community here on the Reddit has been steadily growing. We recently surpassed 900 subs and we're well on our way to 1,000. Keep spreading the word so we can reach that magic number. Remember, the more people find out about the mod, the greater chance of finding talented contributors to add to the team. Keep in mind, guys, that users like Big Wilk and stuff are more recent additions to the Reddit and stuff, so you can see what sort of contributions and impact even the new members of the team have had, which is why it's important that more people find out. I mean, even if there is no more developers, that is still more people to play with the mod, and more support means more kind of will and pumping up the dev team. So that's always a good thing either way. So make sure to keep spreading that on other outlets like Facebook, other Reddit areas where that is, a viable option, things like that. Dev activity. Touchdown. The Dog 88 and other members of the team have put together even more assets for the coming release. Probably the most highly anticipated of these is the Fury class medium fusion destructive device. So obviously that is referring to the Fury nuke. Or fusion. I think it's a nuke anyways. I have to look at this here, and I'm trying to set this up so you guys can't hear the mouse clicks and stuff quite as well. I'm sure it's still picking it up to some extent, hopefully not quite as much as it was before. So looking at this device, there's a few things we can notice. On the first left image is that these screens are blank. Noting that, there's also a stand with that on the first page. And, it looks like this will more than likely be animated in some form or another. Going on from there, you can see on the second image that there is a red bar on the, I guess you could call it the main display. It looks like a loading bar. The bottom screen says device armed, and it's hard to see, but there is a small third screen at the top. And it does look like that does have some sort of display as well. There is a small little red dot that you can barely see sticking out there, depending on what quality you're watching this in, of course. Going to the third image in which the front faces us, you can also see another display on that bottom screen. The top two screens, or at least the middle screen, I should say, is empty. We can't see the very top one. However, that bottom screen does show a number pad. So there could be anywhere between 1 or 2 to 3 modes for this, possibly a completely shut off state, an active state, and then an armed state. I'm not really sure how the stand will work with this device. I'll talk a little bit more about that later and how that might be implemented, where we can see that stand. Next up, well, it doesn't quite float like a butterfly. The Bumblebee Life Pod will soon be crash landing to a battlefield near you. With a fully modeled interior and articulated brakes, we can't wait to see what you guys pull off. We can't wait to see you guys pull off during rescue missions as you track down survivors. Distress beacons, which will come standard in all UNSC air and spacecraft. So, looking at this new Bumblebee, it looks quite a bit like the one we saw in the Anniversary Edition. I guess is probably the most recent edition. You can't really see those air brakes super well, but they are there. They blend in pretty well to the craft. I think we can assume that if those air brakes do work, this craft will fly or fall in some way, shape, or form. Maybe they'll work similar to a drop pod, but in more of a horizontal fashion rather than a vertical one. Just like the Bumblebee in-game, it's got 8 rear seats and 1 pilot or controller seat. I don't know if you can qualify a Bumblebee Life Pod as something that has a pilot. And it will have some form of stock inventory, which is where that emergency locator beacon comes in. I don't know if this beacon is something that's been in Halo before or if this is a custom design. It feels very sci-fi. Regardless, I'm hoping to see something where it's just placed in all vehicles' inventories, including, Pelicans and Falcons, and it's something you're able to pull out and either place down or something and activate that, and it maybe makes a prop on the map or flashes a bright light on IR or something. We'll see. Moving on. On top of that, we've got a whole host of new objects both for populating maps and spicing up your missions. As before, you'll be able to place these anywhere you like as well. A few of the highlights include UNSC deployable watchtowers in several different flavors. So these watchtowers are the same ones that are featured in ODST. Now, in ODST, these are just structures that are already there when you come into the area. We never see these actually deployed. I don't know if we can expect these to actually be deployable in Operation Trebuchet. I mean, as you can see, if you look at the base, those struts are on hydraulics to keep those steady, so maybe this is something we will see dropped off by Pelican or something. With that being said, even though the struts do fold up, it's still a very large structure even before that point. We've got black, green, white, and kind of a light green or tan color here for the desert. Black being kind of the standard one we saw in ODST. Defensive barriers of both the UNSC and ONI variety are also included. Looking at these UNSC ones, we will see it in at least 3 flavors. Fully complete, about half destroyed, and almost completely destroyed. Looking at that control panel, it's probably going to be pretty sizable barriers. It certainly was in ODST. So these will be great for blocking off large roads and things like that. Once again, you can see hydraulics on these barriers here. Presumably controlled by the control panel on that. Once again, due to their size, it's hard to imagine these things being placeable by a Pelican or even a player, but I wouldn't totally discount it either. I mean, even if they wouldn't technically be, Arma does allow you to script that sort of thing where you can control it. Moving on to the Oni security wall here. This one I'm not as familiar with, and it's hard to gauge the size of it. There's a couple handles on there that make this look like it could potentially be a large object too. But since there's no control panels or anything and there's no people by it, it's really hard to get a sense of scale just how large this actually is. You've also got that blue in the center of it. I believe that's probably going to be glass or something transparent, although it's hard to tell in this current view for the 3D model. Hopefully a dev would like to comment on the video and just clarify a couple of these points if you guys are able to. Anyways, moving on. My personal favorite for this is actually kind of an odd one, but the hardened medical shelters for battlefield casualty care, also available without medical markings. One of the things that got me most excited out of all of Halo was the E3 showing of Halo 2, the very first showing of Halo 2. And it's a video in which Master Chief comes down with a group of ODSTs, and he's going into New Mombasa, which was at that point called Earth City. And he comes down, he's going by these medical tents, and you've got wounded Marines being treated in there, and later he comes through and there's Covenant in there. And it's just a very exciting moment for me. And even though this is a very basic structure and there's not a lot to it, it is a very cool structure because it just reminds me of that moment, of that hype. Obviously, taking away the medical markings also makes this building something great for a forward operating base barracks or something where you just put in a couple cots for your Marines to stay. Or even a good place to keep ammunition and things like that. It is a little too small for a vehicle bay, I would imagine. Once again, we don't have anything to really compare the size to, but going off the Halo 3 size, or not Halo 3, but the Halo 2 sizing in that original video, I'm assuming this will be a similar size structure. We actually did see this in a couple of Halo games since, but I guess we'll see what it looks like in Arma here. Moving on, large and small wind turbines have been added. Looking at this large wind turbine, this looks like it's based off of Halo Reach. The small one may be as well, but I'm not familiar with that. Looking at the base of this structure, we actually do have a little bit of size comparison here. Now that looks like a door at the base of the structure. And it also appears that looking at the top of the image, there may be a winding staircase that goes around, allowing you to get on top of this structure here. Now imagine that will probably take quite a while for you to be able to get around it. But it will probably be a great view or vantage point for snipers, or even holding a pretty decent sized area. Now I imagine this will be pretty comparable to the orbital elevator in size, but it'll be a lot more appropriate for those farm fields and stuff. Like I said, that is one of my biggest complaints, is the number of orbital elevators I see in these Halo cities, and I get that that is one of the few props we have before the update, but it'll be nice to get some variation on large Halo objects. Moving on, like I said, we've got the small one. I think this is from Reach as well, but I can't quite remember it. This one's a little bit harder to gauge the size because there is no doors or staircases. But, you know, given the size of the other one, it's hard to say what small is actually qualifying as. You know, is it, you know, man-sized, or is it going to make a Warthog look small, but it's going to be tiny compared to the other one? That's kind of the question there. It's not really too big of a deal, I guess. Obviously, this one not having a staircase or doors or anything like that will probably be interacted with far less than the other wind turbine. This next building is pretty awesome, though. A small modular building to serve as a garage, shelter, or any other structure you need. Great for industrial areas, military bases, and more remote locations. Comes in several different color camo variations. The structure looks very similar to something you might see in Reach once again. It looks like it comes with a number of different gates and doors that you can place onto it, including doors that are partially opened, completely closed, things like that. The doors do look like they close from the bottom, and going off the variations they show, it looks like the door may be able to open and close with animation, or you can just keep it static where it's always closed or always open. It's kind of hard to tell for sure, though. Now, I don't know if those doors will be required to be placed or not. If you look at the side of the door, there is no marking, so you can tell that it is separate from those gray areas that are open. So it might even be that you could just keep those doors completely off, and you can just have that so it's totally open, so that you can just drive vehicles right on in. The interior view of the building isn't exactly great, but presume that there's a door. Well, there is a door on each side. We can tell that from here. So I'm assuming it's going to be an open space here. Now, with there being doors on each side, doors coming in all these variations, including some with and without glass, it's going to be, I think, pretty good for us here. And you'll see a lot of variation with these housings if they're placed smart. You know, and just placing props like tables and things will really make these feel a lot more alive. Moving on. Video phone kiosks. Now, these video phone kiosks here, pretty basic. It looks like it does come in a couple of different versions, mainly with and without glass, and then there is a version that's blue and brown where the video part is. Not much else to this. Now, with that being said, oh wait, I take that back. It looks like I didn't see that original caption. It says glass is turned off for better display. So the glass is actually included in all variations of this. So it might only be that the screen is blue and brown is the only difference, and that may even just be different variations they were testing, or it could just simply be the angle at which this is and the lighting source they use. Like I was starting to say, though, this is a pretty basic addition, but it is one of those things where I keep going back and saying this. It's the small things that bring a world to life. Bring it to life. I'm sorry, guys. I started stumbling over my own words there. But it's the small things that bring a world to life, and this is exactly what this is. Moving on. 55-gallon barrels. Try to avoid shooting the red labeled ones. They're filled with highly unstable hydrogen fuel. Blue's just got water in it, I think. So we got a bit of graffiti and wear and tear on these. I mean, they're the pretty basic Halo drums that you'd see all over the Halo universe. It looks like these are military issued, as they are labeled UNSC on the side. Other than that, though, not a whole lot to these. I mean, if the red ones are indeed set as explosive right from the get-go, and you can just place these in as explosive barrels without having to do any sort of editing or scripting, that'll be really cool. Definitely make you think twice about shooting, or possibly open up some additional options for somebody trying to blow up a building or take out a group of guys from a distance. Mod complaints and request box, trash can. So this trash can, once again, it's another little basic thing. Looks like it might have a variety of different skins. It's hard to tell if this is just different angles or not. Although I don't think it is. I do think this is just different trash cans. It does have a variety of different texts. Yeah. 1 clean and 2 graffiti variants. So there's a number of different texts on here. Pretty much all graffiti written by the insurrectionists. Somebody suggested that these should get inventory, and that way we could place bombs. The dev team said that hadn't been their original plan, but it is an interesting idea, so that may be something we see when these are released. Maybe not. Either way, it's a cool idea. Going down, Industrial Warehouse, featured previously in our What's in the Tarp micro ARG. So, looking at the exterior of this building here, it is a building we have seen before, I do believe. I've covered this in my coverings of the city when its development was a little bit earlier on. We did see this building untextured, if I remember correctly. Looking from the exterior, there's also a couple other buildings in the area which I don't believe we've seen before. It's a little bit hard to tell, though, because the camera is obviously concentrating on the building, and I can't tell if this building directly to the right with like the water tower is a UNSC building or if it's a standard ARMA building that I've just never really noticed before, which is a good possibility, as standard ARMA buildings are included on the map. Moving inside, though, we get a little bit better look at the building here. Well, it doesn't look like much at first glance. This building is probably going to be a pretty interesting building to work with. You've got 2 doors on each side. Presumably they can all be opened and closed with animations. And then we also see ladders. Presumably these ladders are also mirrored on the side where this picture is taken. And we can also probably assume that you're able to go across that whole top area, which does have some half cover up there. Which means that, Innies can sit up here, or UNSC can sit up here and set up ambushes to shoot down anybody coming inside, and possibly even see outside the building from that inside location. So there's definitely actually a lot more possibilities for where you can go with this. Set up some crates, pallets, stuff like that. You could set up a maze in this and actually change the layout quite a bit. While we do have a number of props in here for this picture, it's all real small stuff. And, it's just basically to make it feel a little bit more lived in for the picture. Put in some crates, maybe a forklift or whatever, and you could definitely change up how these all feel, make these warehouses feel very different from one to the next. Guard Shack, which comes in both military and industrial variants included. Once again, another building we have talked about before. This is our first up-close look at it, although we've seen it untextured in the distance. Now in these images, we only have it in the standard green here, UNSC coloring. So we can probably presume that these are the military variants we're seeing. Looking in the background of the second picture, it looks like some possibly new buildings. It's hard to tell for sure, but it looks like possibly a 2 or 3 story UNSC building. Hopefully something we can enter in, or maybe we will be able to enter in down the line later in development. The door is closed on this, but if my suspicions are right, we'll probably be able to open the doors and close the door on this, given the glass interior. The interior is pretty basic. It's a small little area with a metal flooring. You got a little control panel for guards, to enter an ID, open and close gates, things like that. The placement of this particular one seems a bit odd, as it's just kind of off the side of the road. There is a walled-in area, though, so it seems to be some sort of military base or industrial complex that is guarding. But other than that, there doesn't really seem to be anything of strategic importance there. I guess we'll have to wait and see once the map's released. I went the wrong way on my clicking here. I'm really hoping that this mic isn't picking up all this clicking. I meant to not do this much. Information kiosk, because knowing is half the battle. So this is just 2 sides of the same kiosk. The lighting makes it look like 2 different kiosks, though. Nothing's displayed on the screen. We do have a adder image of some kind for the looks like the Colonial Administrative Authority. Okay, yeah, that's what that is. On the side here, but the other screens are blank on the back end too. Not much else to say about this particular one. Masterpieces. McChaffey's given us new themes for you to listen to while you wait for the green light to drop. Pieces Extended, and Turning the Tides. Sadly, I will not be playing these in the video at all, as I get dinged whenever I play McChaffey's stuff. Sorry, McChaffey. Gain the Lead. In addition to HEV scripting and other fun secret stuff. What sort of secret stuff, guys? Don't you want to tell us? Come on. You know you want to. Big Wilk has been setting up a multiplayer mission framework to be included with the update. This will allow servers to host instanced multiplayer sessions that won't require the prep time or micromanagement that comes with Zeus-based gameplay. Simply join the server, pick your team, and get into the action. Missions will involve a blend of classic Halo game types, some more tailored to the scope and style of Arma gameplay. More info to come later. So this is something I have, not really covered in my past videos. They have talked about it a little bit before. Like I said with the Fury, you have that stand that comes with it. I suspect we will be seeing an assault type in which that stand comes into play. We do have some other stuff that's included that I'll touch base with. But if you guys watched my last video, I think that was possibly my first team versus team fight for this mod. It was red versus blue. We had less than 15 people, and that probably took anywhere from half an hour to 40 minutes to set up, and that's just in the time I was there. That's not including prep time for the administrator setting up servers and stuff before I got there. And that was a pretty basic mission. You had a couple different loadouts. You could choose between assault rifle, battle rifle, and then there were some weapons included on the map. So it'll be nice to see something where we can just drop in and play. Because even though it took a while to set up and it was very basic, it was very fun to play a Halo versus in an atmosphere that's very different and plays very differently than your regular, Halo games, while at the same time still playing that sort of classic Slayer equivalent. On that same note, Gain the Lead. Oh, wait, sorry, read that one. Flags of Our Fathers. In order to facilitate a certain classic game type, HK Urban and the Dog 88 have put together a capturable flag and flag stand. You'll be able to choose from a wide variety of flag patterns or create your own using an included Photoshop template. And this is where the devs get to poke a little bit of fun at us, making fun of the armor retextures. Cover those in past videos, so I won't get too into that. These flags are also useful as decorations around your base for organizing groups prior to joint operations. And we've got a couple different pictures here, the first of which has your stand, the flag in the stand, and a separate flag. You've got your standard multiplayer red and blue, which includes the Hawk with Swords and the Cobra. Moving on, we've got the extended image, which includes both the multiplayer and the lore-friendly flags. From left to right, we've got Oni. We've got the Reefs with the World, which I guess is pretty similar to the Colonial Authority, but is also the marking for General. We've got a variant on the ODST symbol, which is the skull and drop pod combined with fractal flames kind of set up on that. You've also got your classic ODST styled flag. The red and blue flags we covered already for the multiplayer variants. Red and blue flags with the UNSC logo. This red and white flag I'm not familiar with. I don't know what that emblem is for, so I don't know if that's a rebel group or a civilian group. The two next to it are insurrectionist flags in green and red variants, both of which have the INI logo on it. Next to that, we've got a green flag with some sort of black emblem with a yellow star. I'm not familiar with this emblem as far as it's concerned in the Halo universe. I am sorry, guys. It is placed next to the Colonial Authority flag, so maybe it's a colonial flag of some kind, I'm not sure. Next to that, we've got a white UNSC flag, kind of a neutral one. And next to that, we've got a purple Covenant flag. So the Covenant aren't getting totally left behind in the dust here, guys. I know that they're not getting quite as much love as the UNSC, but they're definitely still getting love. Unfortunately, I don't have any news for First Contact, and hoping it will still be included with the update. That was the plan a couple months back, so hopefully that still remains true. Conclusion, that wraps it up for this week's Uplink. We've been keeping busy and will continue marching forward. For those of us in the States, enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day weekend and remember those whose ultimate sacrifice is the reason for this holiday. I was originally going to read these names out loud, but I was butchering most of the last names, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just going to post those on the screen for you guys to read as I let the rest of the video roll here. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share the video, guys, and just make sure to keep tuning in for more Operation Trebuchet news, gameplay, and videos. And I will see you guys around.